It's an annual event, and with me this morning, it's the Deputy Dean and Lecturer. His name is Dr. Darren Conrad. He is closest to me here. Also with me is Joel Jonad, who is the Senior Administrative Assistant in the Department of Economics. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome.
Good morning.
Now, the conference, it is carded for Wednesday, the 9th of October. How has the conference gone in the past? Let's start with that first.
Well, go ahead.
Okay, it's
the turnout and the speakers and such.
yeah, the turnout and the conference actually spans 2 days, so it's the 9th and the 10th of October. And in the past, we have covered topics ranging from trade to poverty and inequality to sustainable development. And this year, we are re-evaluating strategies for sustainable economies, because the conversation has gone the gambit, and we realize that we need to do something different in terms of how we develop our economies.
Yeah, because we've seen in more recent times, and even so right now, that there seems to be a strain on the economy itself, as the narrative currently is that we're in rough economic times.
Exactly.
So how is it do we go about then, changing the strategy and the approach toward, generating a sustainable economy?
Well, first of all, we'll be actually starting off with our featured speaker, which is Professor Avinash Prasad, who is the chairman of the CARICOM Commission on the Economy. So he will kind of give a broad perspective in terms of what is happening in the region and where we should be going in the region. And then we would move on to the particular sub-themes in economics that will allow us to be able to examine these themes, whether it be new areas in macroeconomics or economic reporting, or even culture, and how we examine these issues.
Right, definitely, and we really need to approach it in such a way that would be a holistic approach, I would say. Yeah, toward really generating and reinvigorating the economy here in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider CARICOM region itself. Doctor, what would you say in regards to having innovation and technology bolster the economy?
Well, that is one of the critical elements. And what we do in these instances at these fora is we evaluate the economy, the economic systems empirically, and then we make some recommendations based on the findings. And what we've been doing is incorporating the technology in some of the modeling aspects of economics as it relates to the Caribbean region. So when we factor that in terms of the new developments in macroeconomics as well, we see some room for actually the application type of it within the economic systems. So again, it's not an armchair discussion in that sense, but it is really rigorous academic discussions and how these different activities will work within the economic systems that we have. So we're sort of designing and speaking to what is sort of indigenous to not just Trinidad, but and also with application to the region as well.
I was thinking, how does the discussion translate into everyday life, and to use your word, the application of it? How does it trickle down to the rest of the country?
Well, this is really an opportunity to start a discussion. And then we work that discussion through the system. So throughout the year, we'll have follow-on events and activities that will speak to some of these things and how we can apply them. So for example, one of the papers that will be presented is looking at new fiscal management tools. And we talk about all of these different fiscal management tools ranging from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and so on. So we look at all of these things and how we can actually optimize these tools in our fiscal management. We're also looking at currency valuation as a strategy, which is always something that is of concern for people. There's always a lot of talk about whether we should devalue the currency or not. So we're looking at that as the beginning of the discussion from an academic perspective, and then we'll see how it works through the system, whether or not the system can facilitate some of these different tools that we'll be speaking about.
Are there any systems of other countries in the world whose ratings for their economy is higher than ours that we could probably take example from?
While most may think so, I think what is important is for us to understand how our systems work. We may mimic some elements of it, but not all of it. while in some instances, let's say, for instance, a devaluation may work in some instances to spur on economic growth, we have to look at our current fiscal or economic situation, which may not necessitate the same outcome. Right. So looking at other systems is good in terms of a general framework, but I do think that we need to look at where our economic systems are and how we can then work with these different tools within our system. Far too often we make the mistake, and this is addressed in the conference as well. We look at other economic systems and try to implement similar things here, but it's not necessarily the case. So we're looking at our system, our region, and then we work from there.
Yeah, it should be more specific to our region because it's not a one plan fix all.
Precisely.
The way in which disruption is taking place globally, you would think that, okay, you have to revisit the whole idea of economics and Keynesian economics and all of that. Is that something that's important or to be addressed in this conference?
In this conference, there's, in particular, I'm glad you raised that issue, that there's a section, sub-theme titled New Developments in Macroeconomics. And that is where we'll have an opportunity to revisit some of these frameworks and prescribe new ones or develop new ones. So all of that is exciting stuff. It's pretty much cutting edge where this is concerned, rather than looking at some of the older frameworks. We're looking at new ways of doing business. That's why we talk about re-evaluating the strategies for sustainable economies.
And what about the diversity of the markets that we enter into? Because I mean, yes, we understand we are an oil-producing country, so we are focused a lot on energy. Now, is there going to be any discussion on alternative industries and such that we could engage in to help increase our GDP, for instance?
Well, interestingly, this year, we've included the arts, theater, and the arts in the discussion. So we're looking at different ways to incorporate different sectors within the economy outside of the energy sector to engage in this discussion. In addition to which, I think there's an exciting piece that we have which speaks to gender issues in economics. So we talk about a lot of these the challenges or the inequalities within the system, as well as some of the unique opportunities that if we address some of those gaps, that we can create a new synergy moving forward.
Well, I know this is an annual conference, and I feel like you were here last year, and I do remember saying that we should be looking at the creative sector, so I'm wonderfully and pleasantly surprised.
Just as you say,
entertainment is the new oil. Yes. But this is where we have to leave it, guys. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to a successful conference and to hearing more about it. Carrie, your guest, Dr. Darren Conrad.
And also Joel Jordan. But just before we close off, we just need the contact information and how we get access to that event.
Okay, we have a website, conferences/COTE at UWI. And also we have a number that you could call if you're interested in registering for the conference, because this is actually a paid conference as well.
Right.
But we have some specialty rates. You can access it via 662-9461 or 662-2002 extension 82630.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for what you've shared this morning, and we do look forward to the outcome of this conference.